In this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, Steve and I sit down with Mark Zepp and Jason Duby. Mark is an icon in the Coonhound industry and also the predator calling industry. He is the creator of the Zepp's Coon Squaller and other high-grade predator calls as well. Mark is just a super guy that sits down with us and shares his stories about working for Wick Outdoor Works, John and Linda Wick out in Missouri, and then his journey through the outdoor industry. So I think you'll really enjoy listening to his stories about hunting in Australia, and without giving too much of it away. And then of course we have the rock star Jason Duby from W Hunting Supply with us as well. And Jason talks about his role at W and also hunting fox on the West Coast and the hounds that he chooses to hunt those with. Both really interesting guys. We're glad they sat down with us. I want to encourage you to go to the W Hunting Supply website at dusupply.com and make sure you go to the Join the Fight page. We've got a new hat up there. It's a leather patch cap. It's a classy looking lid for you. And all the proceeds that we generate go to support this podcast that we love putting out for you every week. We really hope you enjoy this episode, and we will get rolling on it. And we're rolling. So we are alive and well here at Autumn Oaks 2019. And part of our, what are we going to call this thing, Steve?
Well, what are we going to call this session that we're doing right here?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
I'm just thinking something like in the presence of greatness.
I like it.
That works.
Yeah, we've got Jason Duby from W Hunting Supply with us. He's been working hard all weekend in the booth here, supporting Houndsman XP, representing W very well. And we've got the legendary Mark Zepp with us.
It's great to be here, Chris. I can't believe I've missed two Autumn Oaks in the last 30 years, and I'm Steve. I can't believe, as we sit here with microphones in front of us, and how far the sport has advanced in that time. And here we are doing a podcast. You guys are certainly to be commended for that. It's about time, and it's very good for the sport, very good for the industry. To be doing this, and my pleasure to be here. It's great to be back in Richmond, Indiana, as it is every year. When folks talk about Labor Day weekend and their plans, my thoughts are always, hey, I'm going to be in Richmond for Autumn Oaks. So
yeah. So you're here with Garmin.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes,
and,
sir.
I've seen your new coat on some racks here.
Yes, sir. That's all a new product for the Zepp side, but. I'm happy and proud to be here representing Garmin, and when my first years at Autumn Oaks, the first 10 years or so, were with Wick Outdoor Works.
Right.
And from there, I missed a couple. As I tell folks, I lived out of my van for a couple of years hunting coyotes out west.
What kind of van was it?
It was a Ford. A Ford Econoline.
A VW microbus,
yeah.
right?
It was a big one, and
it'd have to be.
Yeah.
For Big Mark.
But, and I always thought I'd wanted to hunt every state west of the Mississippi River, and I got that done. And when that time frame was over, I was lucky enough to get hired by Tri-tronics and moved to Tucson, Arizona, and that was a wonderful time. I met my lovely wife out there,
right.
And we had our son Wyatt out there. And at one point, we just decided we wanted to get back to the Midwest. I hadn't had dogs for quite a while, and so as Wyatt got ready for kindergarten, why we requested a move back to the Midwest. A lot of my travel at that time was back this way. So that happened, and shortly after that, why Garmin purchased Tri-tronics, and it's been a great transition for
yeah.
me. I think for the industry, it's a company that makes the greatest products all over the world, whether it's for the aviation industry or the automotive industry. But we're fortunate that they did get into the Hound game, and in 2007 they would introduce their Astro 220, and of course it revolutionized the whole sport.
Absolutely.
The whole industry.
One thing from my seat as a hunter, it seemed like a seamless transition for Tri-tronics. I mean, I felt no, as a consumer, I felt no stress about moving over to Garmin.
It was great. I mean, at the time at Tri-tronics, of course, I'd never lived through anything like that, an acquisition, and we didn't know. Gosh, are they going to let everybody go? Are they going to, do they keep us? What happens here? But it has been wonderful. It is a fabulous company to work for that makes great products. I think coming from the Tri-tronics side, there was always a worry or a concern maybe that the quality of the products might not be the same, but I believe they're better than they were. And that's just a testament to Garmin. Yes, most of their products are made in Taiwan, but all those facilities and all those employees, they're all Garmin-owned facilities. They're all Garmin employees, and it's truly a worldwide company with just tremendous people. In the United States here, we're headquartered out of Olathe, Kansas, or Kansas City, Kansas, and I'm just impressed every time I go back to corporate. The new people that I meet, and as well as the folks that are there, just what a world-class place it is, and how many great employees they have.
Yeah, Jason, you work a lot with Garmin.
We do.
Yeah,
I'm fortunate enough I get to see Mark a couple times a year.
Yeah.
We do usually the Wisconsin Bear Hunters Association dinner. They set up right next to us. They get to do all the cool programming stuff, and we're usually flinging product and meeting customers, and it's a good time. We got a real good working relationship with them. We always look forward to it. I missed O'Charlie's for free pie night this year, but it's always nice to get with guys from Garmin.
When we come to Richmond, Indiana, we always, for whatever reason, it seems like we gravitate to O'Charlie's every night.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I had a great experience with Garmin back in the early days of the Coonhound, the development of the
yes, sir.
Astro units, and then later, not so much the Alpha, but, and went to Olathe and met a lot of those great people out there and saw the operation, which is really phenomenal. And
it's cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. But to be involved, at that early stages of the Garmin interaction with the hound sport was really fun, and getting to do a little bit of the R&D work, although I didn't know what was going on, having Kevin Brickhouse strapping these prototypes on those plot hounds and turning them loose around Jordan Lake there in North Carolina, just things like that. It's been a fun ride,
Absolutely, and instrumental. You were at AKC at the time, and of course, all the work that you've done, legendary work that you've done for the registries, and I think what you do for your writings in Cooner, I think especially your American Choice articles are they're just so good to, as everybody continues to get older, it's just a really...
Some of us older than others.
But it's just a piece of history in a history book for folks who want to learn and want to read about those things. You did something a few months ago on Dick Brothers, and we certainly pass our best wishes on to Dick right now, as we learned he had a stroke a couple days ago and is in ICU there in Sioux City. But those articles that you do for everybody, it's just they need to be put together, and I hope they are someday, for kind of a history book of for this great sport.
Right. Yeah. Well, Jason, tell us a little bit about your role at W. We've talked about it, and we've given you
Not
a whole.
with these on though.
Yeah, but Steve and I have talked about it, and we've already got your job description all laid out. If you listen to any of our podcasts,
Yeah.
but tell us what you really do.
Well, there's a lot of hats. You know, we got a really good team at W. You know, everybody plays a lot of roles, and we kind of all switch over. I'm the guy, we all joke around. I sit around at home and watch Judge Judy. And, you know, I work remote for the company most of the time. So really, I'm sitting there. We do a lot of orders. You know, I'll place orders. I do a lot of tech support for customers, set up service repairs, that kind of stuff, and traveling. I mean, this is the highlight. You know, getting to come back here is a huge, huge highlight for me.
Yeah.
know.
So being from the West Coast, a lot of our houndsmen and listeners in the West, you know, Steve and I have sat down and tried to give a visual image of this, what's going on here. So, in your opinion, from your perspective, Jason, what do you see happening here?
It's nothing like a lot of Western guys have ever seen. You know, if you don't load up and come out, you can't fathom what really goes on out here. The people are amazing. You know, it's a good group of people. You get to see a lot of really nice hounds. And it's just, this is the stuff that's going to keep the sport alive. You know, we all got to stick together, and we got to promote ourselves in a positive light. And, you know, on the west side, it's a lot harder. You know, we do a lot of field trials and banquet events and things like that. But something this caliber, you got to see to understand it.
Right.
You know?
It's always amazing to me how the way our products are used, you know, the way the Garmin, the Alphas and the Astro product are used in the coon hunting world versus the big game world. One being, just one example being the popularity of bird's eye satellite imagery in the coon hunting world, where in, you know, Jason's guys out west, you know, when I talk to Buddy and Woodbury, the owner out there, he always tells me, well, I don't need that. It's just a bunch of trees. It's just showing me trees.
That's because he hunts in the daytime. I hunt at night. I love it. I can see where I'm walking.
You know, so it's different to see. You know, it's neat to see how people use the product differently and their wants and needs of those products.
Right.
If I take a look back, you know, in I use the word career, I mean, my experience with dogs, and thinking back to when I was a kid in those southern mountains of West Virginia, you know, and how we kept track of anything, you know. I mean, I never even had a compass until I went to Michigan. I mean, we hunted up the creek, and we came back down the creek.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know,
Exactly.
if the creek's on the right side going up, it's on your left coming back, you know, and that sort of thing. And then I fast forward to today, and I go over to Randy Smith's in Pennsylvania, and we're sitting in this elite side-by-side, and we got a hunt track on the dash, you know, and we're sitting there watching our dogs, what amounts to be on TV, you know, and we can see that this dog's hunting down this fence row, and then there's a creek there, and she turns right up the creek like where you want her to, and you're following all this, and I mean, it's just like that. It's almost like a back, I don't know, it's a time warp or something, you know. Where did we get to this point? You know?
It definitely
But
is.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I love it, especially for guys my age. You know, I'm all for this technology.
Yeah, it is exciting times for sure.
It's been a game changer, too. You know, when I came into it, I still learned to hunt with beep stuff with the old timers, you know, and I had a dog lost, and that's when I decided to buy my first Garmin, you know, and now it's just revolutionized everything. I mean, we hunt different style of dogs now because of it. You don't have to have a huge ball mouth dog to hear it. You know, we can hunt, you know, whatever you want. I can go hunt on a Tuesday night and still be in work in time to take everybody's orders the next morning, you know.
Right.
You could never do that. You know, out west, you turn a dog loose, you didn't know how long you were going to be out there.
Right.
Absolutely.
The safety aspect of it, too, keeping these dogs out of danger, I think that's been huge.
Absolutely.
You know?
And even being able to pair your handhelds up together to track each other around. I mean, that is revolutionary. Where, I mean, in the past it was, hey, you start down this creek and I'll drive around and pick you up at the next bridge or whatever it is. And now you can actually see exactly where people are all the time right there on your screen.
Yep.
I mean, you're right. It has revolutionized the sport, no doubt. I never even thought about that. But, yeah, we are hunting different style of dogs now because of the technology that we have available. So it's pretty amazing stuff. Well, Jason, I want to talk real quick about, like, you're from Oregon.
Yes,
live
sir.
in Oregon. And you definitely hunt a different style of hound on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you've from back here in Ohio, and you've got family in Michigan. So you're familiar with the breeds and the hunting styles of the hounds back east here. But for the West in Oregon, what kind of hunting are you doing?
I do a lot of gray fox right now, and a little bit of bobcat. You know, I've never had real great cat dogs. You know, I like chasing them, but you know, a lot of the gray fox, because we've got a pretty plentiful population. We can go out pretty much any night and go get on one or two, see the dogs work, and, you know, get home. There's enough time. You know, I can put kids to bed at night, get out to the woods, and come back and still get a decent night's sleep. And we don't have the coons, though. I mean, we've got one club pretty much on the West Coast, and we're lucky to get a cast of dogs, one cast, and we're hunting mini slams. We've got guys that drive from BC, one from Washington. I drive about 5 hours north from Grants Pass area. Yeah. And it's tough.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a lot different style. You know, a lot of guys out there are running to, you know, more of a foxhound cross or a running dog, I guess you call it.
Yes, sir.
Depends on who you're talking to. You get lynched if you call them a running dog sometimes. But, you know, looking for something with some speed, still have some good locate. You know, for us, I look at tree and locator, two different things. You know, tree dog, that's fine and dandy, but when we're walking in as far as we are to the big woods, you want to make sure it's there if you're hiking in, you know, so.
So you're hunting a lot of mountain terrain out there.
Yeah, the Cascades and the Siskiyous mainly.
Yeah.
Unless we want to pop over. You know, we'll hunt the high desert, especially in the winter for cats. We'll go over eastern Oregon. But mainly Cascades and Siskiyous and big mountainous country.
Right. What style of dog is effective for fox hunting? That hunting gray fox with hounds is completely foreign to me. I mean, it doesn't even cross my radar when I think, what am I going to do with my hound today?
Oh, I'm still learning. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I got some really good friends that I hunt with, and I can bounce things off of. You know, when I made the switch, I was primarily a blue tick guy, and that's what we bred and showed and hunted for a lot of years. And when I made the switch, you know, you got to realize it's a whole different ball game. You know, and I was at a point where I couldn't make the switch. You know, one style of dog with four of another style doesn't do you any good. You know, out there we're not hunting one dog; it's a pack. And if they're not packed in, you might as well be running, you know, 3 different races. You know, you got dog in the back booger barking, you're pulling your lead dogs back, and it could turn into a mess. So I hit a point where I could make the change, and I ended up getting some really nice older hounds from a good friend of mine, you know, that were more fox-minded, small game varmint dogs, and blessed with finding some good young pups and working them. And it's been a lot of fun, but it has been a job getting there. You know, it's like you got to relearn everything because it's night and day different.
So if you were going to describe the ideal fox dog, gray fox dog, because fox hunting back here is, you know, red fox, and then we have a lot of coyote hounds back here, but gray fox is a whole different deal because they climb.
Yep.
So describe for me what the ideal foxhound would be for you.
For me,
yeah.
I mean, I want to keep trailing a dog. You know, they still got to have a decent nose and be able to get a track going. But we want something it's that extra drive to just push the animal and not the track. You know, they're a real game-minded dog. We like something, you know, I like a good, I'd say a little overly long, you know, not quite 50-50, you know, not a square dog, but something with a little more drive in the rear. something, you know, they pick their head up and run. They're so different than a lot of coonhounds I'd ever hunted. But, you know, tight feet on us is huge. You know, you got to have good feet on a dog out there. And, you know, the hardest part for me, I like that coonhound sound. I want to hear a dog, a big ball, chop on tree. And these foxhounds, you know, they're a little different. You know, you get the squall mouth and the squealers, and it's cool. But, you know, I like good hair. I want a dog that's going to hold up. I'm a fan of flag tails, you know.
Does that make them run faster or what?
Well, yeah, it's like a rudder.
That's right. That's
Steve, you got
but if you're going to feed a dog, it might as well look good.
Well,
you know.
Sitting here listening to you, Jason, it's almost like things have gone full circle. I'm imagining that this is one of the Walker family in Kentucky talking, and this is the stage where the red fox has migrated into Kentucky after being imported into Tidewater, Virginia, and Maryland, and all that. And then all of a sudden, the dogs that they have, they like to run the fox to ground. I mean, they wanted their dogs to either catch the fox on the ground or put it in a hole. And now they can't catch this guy. He's just running them to death. And now what do they need? How are they going to do this? They need something with more speed and drive, yada, yada. And they find Tennessee lead and a black and tan colored dog of unknown ancestry, and they start breeding to some of these bitches. They've done everything. They've imported bitches from Ireland and England, and they've inbred so much that they're getting blind and deaf dogs and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, the key, you know. But what they're asking for is what you just described that you like in a foxhound, and that's something, you know, that can run to catch, you know. We used the term in the Beagle program when we started that is, you know, run the track as fast as scenting condition will allow with as few losses as possible, you know. And I guess that would kind of be the credo or whatever for a running hound man. I think.
That's the hard part is, you know, getting everything to stick. You know, you get these dogs, like I've had to unfortunately go through a couple to get to where I'm at, you know, because they're too loose of a dog. You know, they'll swing way wide, and next thing you know, somebody zigs instead of zagging, and they're blown out of the race. Yeah. So it's finding that happy medium of a dog that wants to pack in and push, and that dog that wants to circle out.
It's definitely different than the deep and lonely dog, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't hunt that out there. You know, it's but I'm very lucky.
You can get very deep
and very lonely.
Yeah, very like wilderness. The map with no roads in it, you know.
Oh, no doubt.
Mark, did you hunt coons at all when you were in Arizona?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. There's some of those bottoms that have some cottonwood trees, but there's nothing that really resembles or makes you even think about the sport when you're out there. Especially, I was in southern Arizona, so you're in the foothills, the desert country.
I-10 through there.
Yeah, you're right out there where Geronimo ran around.
That's it, and the Chiricahuas and right outside of the Rincon Mountains, and beautiful country. We really. Had we not had Wyatt, we'd have probably stayed out there. It's world class. I'm a big into predator calling as well, and
you've got a little side business in that, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really, we did most of our filming for our videos and that sort of thing out there, but we loved the. I'm fortunate. Every place I've been is great, really, and southern Arizona was wonderful. I think northern Arizona is wonderful too. But the southern Arizona, you really don't think a coon hunting at all. You know, I mean, what they call a river out there is a dried up riverbed that might have water a couple days a year in it. You know, during what they call monsoon season.
Yeah.
You know.
I was just out there during their monsoon season. I remember going to Tucson as a kid, talking about those dry riverbeds. You know, my grandfather had I think it was a 1972 Mercury 4-door LTD, and he drove that thing.
No. It wasn't an LTD
what
Mercury.
Was it?
That's a Ford.
Ford LTD.
It must have been
He had a Mercury.
Mercury, probably. What do we called a Monterey or something?
I don't know, but it was definitely a Mercury, and it was definitely green, and he definitely drove it everywhere. And we drove down some of those riverbeds and stuff, and he would talk about, last time it had water in it and different things. And I was a kid, so I was just amazed. Here we are driving down the river in a Ford car, or a Mercury, one of the two.
One of the two.
Yeah.
Mark, you lived in Montgomery City, Missouri for a while.
Yeah,
what about that experience?
Oh, it was wonderful. John and Linda and Monica Wick, they're just such they were great people then. They're great people now. It was I look back, it was a wonderful 10 years of my life. As I grew up as a kid, John Wick was a hero of mine. He's still a hero of mine today. And when I got the chance to go to work for him, actually, I don't know if you remember, I met Steve in Sedalia, Missouri at Redbone Days out there. And that would have been 1988 or so. And that's when I went out to meet John and Linda and see if I could get a job out there. And so it was like, if you're into music or something, it was like I was suddenly Bon Jovi's lead guitarist or something, It was like you're playing the drums for Elvis. It was just a wonderful experience for me. And I learned, other than my own parents, my dad's the greatest guy I've ever known in my life, and I have a wonderful mother. But certainly I always considered the Wicks my second set of parents, and I did then, I still do now. I love them both, and their daughter Monica, and that was a big part of my life. I learned, just about the business, the sport, how you should act and conduct yourself while you're out here on the road, when you're on a cast. Winning it's so hard to win, and it's so hard to prepare to win, but when you do win, it's easy to be a good winner. You have to prepare yourself and learn how to lose gracefully. It's one of it's one of the things I both my wife Amber and I, we try to teach our son Wyatt about that, as he's big into basketball. But I talk to folks in this sport and the sport of coyote hunting as well, when they're hunting in tournaments. It's just, like I said, you have to lose with some dignity. It always hurts to lose, and you're right there. And there's so many good things that happen. There's so many great people in the sport that you meet. There's so many special moments during the night, during the cast, on your way to winning, on your way to a Final Four. And there's so much disappointment when you get there and you're so close. It's losing at the buzzer on that shot at the buzzer or whatever it is, and it's heartbreaking. But at the same time, you still have to do that with some class. It is tough to lose, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you represented John and Linda very well, Mark. Everybody knows you. Of course, you're a big guy. Your physical stature.
It's unforgettable.
But that's just the surface, because when people meet you immediately, you have the way of recognizing people and acknowledging them and taking the time to do what they need to do and what they're looking for. But
I hope so. I appreciate that. I don't know. But I appreciate you saying
absolutely. But you were on the road for them. Basically, you were the face of Wick Outdoor Works out at the events for how many years?
Yeah, and I was almost 10 years, I was proud to do that. I was proud to do that for Tri-tronics. I'm proud to be where I am with Garmin. Most people, when they look at that, they also don't realize the sacrifice. I moved when I moved to Missouri to work for John and Linda, my folks had a 1,000-acre farm that that ended up selling because I just always thought I would end up in Missouri, and it just didn't, at Wick Outdoor Works, and it didn't work out that way, and that's fine. That just meant there's bigger and better things down the road for you. But
I can relate to that. Being with UKC those years, actually 16 years at a time, and Fred Miller was getting older, and I kind of always envisioned that that's where I would always be.
Sure.
And I thought that I didn't have any illusions of grandeur or anything but I was kind of back in my mind said, well, maybe I'll be in that corner office someday,
Yes, sir.
But it just didn't work out that way,
Yep.
and things happen and conditions and things and all, and every time I moved, it actually turned out to be a move for the better for me. In one way or the other.
Sure.
But those were my really golden years working with UKC. I enjoyed those tremendously. But I probably had more fun, actually, at PKC because I was more involved with the actual hunting at that point.
Yes, sir.
But at any rate, I can relate to what you're saying there, about that experience.
So it was wonderful. My years at Wick were wonderful years. There's tremendous sacrifices in all of those things. Moving there, the farm sold, and it was lots of nights on the road. Even when I went to Tri-tronics, it was the same. 150, 180, maybe 200 nights a year on the road some years. I don't think people understand that or fathom what that is. At the time when I was working for John and Linda, I had no idea how valuable that experience was because I was meeting so many people. I wasn't just going to coon dog events. I was going to beagle events and bird dog events and a few retriever events and different things. And I didn't realize it. And then when I went, I didn't realize how valuable that was. But then when I went on to Tri-tronics, I knew all these people. They were
exactly.
Yeah, they as we talked, I knew all the dealers already. I knew so many of the key players, and then to be able when I went to Tri-tronics to meet the legend Farrell Miller, in the bird dog game, and Miller's Chief, and to be able to spend time with Mike Lardy, the really famous retriever trainer, and different people. It's just wonderful. I can't even tell you, as a kid that grew up and loved coon dogs, but loved to see working dogs, sporting dogs, and to see all those things and be around all of these great people. I tell people I'm about the luckiest man in the world. I feel like I'm on vacation every day. I got a wonderful wife and a great son, and in many ways I feel like I haven't worked a day in my life because I've always loved what I have done, and I just can't even relate or fathom going to a job where you're dreading that every day. And I know lots of people who are in that situation. I live in Middlebury, Indiana, which is the RV capital of the world. So there's, a lot of people there that are going to factory jobs from 5 or 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, every day, day after day of that, and they're dreading that. But I like I said, I feel like most of the time I've never worked a day in my life and been really fortunate.
Yeah. So tell us about some of your you've been around the world with, literally.
Yes, sir.
Traveled around the world.
Yes, sir.
And that was with Tri-tronics and Garmin.
When originally when I was with John and Linda,
I'm trying to get some stories out of you here, Mark.
When I was with John and Linda, at Wicks, a gentleman had come over to meet John. He was in the U.S. from Australia, and he said when he got ready to leave, he said, well, you should come see me sometime.
Yeah.
I had got to know him, and I said, now keep in mind, I had never bought a house or never gotten married. I didn't have any kids or anything. My only sole responsibility in life was working and working out, really. And then at night I would hunt. So when he left, I ended up, one of the things that he had told me over there was about red fox, calling red fox. And it was unbelievable stories of, killing 100 a night.
What?
With traps, and they used poison over there, and they called it as well.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I got to see this. And so I went over, and it was just unimaginable. If out there kangaroos get hit on the road or something, and you come by at night, a couple hours later, let's say after this animal's out, there's 10 red fox eating this thing, and it's just the most.
Sounds fun.
It is just, and for people that hunt, the red fox there, they're a little bit bigger, but they look like our red fox here. But when you call them, they actually act more like a gray fox. And I remember the first time that I went with this fellow, Paul was his name, and he gave me the shotgun and told me to grab a couple shells, and we were going to go out for a walk. And so we walked 100 yards or something from the truck, and he said, "Where are your shells at?" And I had 3 or 4 of them there in my hand. I go, "Well, they're right here."
Right.
And he looked at me. He said, "Is that all you brought?" and I said, "Yeah." I mean, I couldn't even, imagine.
You can calculate.
And he had a little, what they call a fox whistle over there. It was kind of like a quail call here, and he blew into that. And I thought, man, we are wasting our time. The next thing you know, I was out of those 4 shells that quick. I thought, man.
Well, am I wrong? They were brought in, weren't they, to control the rabbits or something?
Yeah, and you could. I'm not making this stuff up. I mean, and I'm not from Texas.
You can't.
I mean, you tell somebody you from Texas you caught a 10-pound bass. They say, "Well, I caught a 13-pound just yesterday." But the rabbits over there. I mean, you can just drive around in the back of a truck and kill. Shoot what they would call like 200 pair. That's 400 rabbits. And you're looking at these people like they're from outer space. Like it can't possibly be true.
Yeah.
But you go out there and there's rabbits like maggots on something dead just everywhere you look. Well, you can't hardly shoot and not hit one,
Right.
Did you encounter any hound hunters at all?
Yeah, I went out there. We hunted samba deer. Now, the gentleman that I met, he had imported some blue ticks to hunt these samba, which they're kind of like a short-horned elk, is what I would call them. And so, we went up in the mountains to hunt. Now, I was 27, 20, that's 30 years ago, and I was tough. Wasn't fat back then. I was tough back then, all right? And
we're all getting there.
I mean, so we go up into these mountains, and man, we sleep under these makeshift tents, and my buddy said, "Well, here's your sleeping bag." Of course, it looked like it was for a infant. I thought, my God. And it snowed during the night.
I'll put this one on my left leg.
Yeah.
if you got 4 more.
Yeah. It snowed during the night. It was miserable. There must have been 30 guys, and we would walk along this mountain ridge, and then they would kick 2 guys down on a ridge maybe a mile in length, and then they would use those dogs to drive those deer, those samba your way. And I didn't ever see any of those. None of them ever came my way, but dozens of red fox did. And I couldn't, I didn't care whether I ever saw one of those samba in it, up in the mountains, because there was just so many fox. It was just fascinating to me. But the guys that I hunted with, they killed a few of them, of course, in that. But I remember at one point in there, a guy telling me, "Yeah, I want you to get over. You see that tree on that far ridge over there?" And it looked like it was 35 miles away to me. And I thought, boy, and he said, "Yeah, I want you to get over there." And I started down this mountain, and boy, I slid about 50 yards in these rocks, and I thought I'm gonna die here. And I don't know what made me ever think I'd come here and agree to hunt these daggone deer, I thought, and there is no one that will ever find me.
Right.
This is, Garmin has an in-reach product that you can use. Well, there was no cell phones. There was none of that stuff. And I remember just sitting there about 10 minutes thinking, I don't believe I need to go to that tree here. I don't need to kill a deer in one of those things that bad,
How are you going to get it back?
Yeah. So it was an amazing experience. I was over there, 10 days or so, and it was neat. That was one. I did get to go to a show called the EWA show in Germany last year. I did write about that a little bit in Cooner. And that's kind of like the SHOT Show is, the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show that's every year in Las Vegas in January. That show, I believe it's in April or so, and it was, again, it was in Nuremberg, and it didn't even occur to me at the time when I was going, but when I was there, some of the guys from the United States said, Hitler gave his propaganda speeches less than a mile from where we're standing right now.
Yeah.
And, right. And the war crimes, the war trials and all, they were right there in that city. And it's something, you read about in history and you think about, but suddenly you're right there, and you get to see some of that stuff, and it is amazing.
I wonder how that ever happened.
How it ever happens. Yeah. Of course, they destroyed most of those buildings and everything that was around there, but they left the stadium itself. There's soccer fields all around that, but actually where he stood to give those speeches now, it's still standing there. So
wow,
those are things. As a coon hunting kid growing up in Warsaw, Ohio, that I just could have never imagined being there or doing those type of things. I just, and I've been so blessed and so fortunate,
Well, I can kind of relate a little bit to that when, I started out back in West Virginia, just a little coon club. We didn't have UKC hunts. We didn't have a license for anything, but we did have field trials and water races and little buddy hunts and all. And then fast forward, and I found myself all suited up, walking down Madison Avenue, getting on the elevator to go up to the 4th floor or whatever, and walk into the boardroom at American Kennel Club, and I'm saying, what the hell am I doing here?
How about that? That's right. Right?
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
And all for a hound dog.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
All for a hound.
So you can be, I remember a 5th grade teacher came to our house one day and told my parents how worried she was about me because all I wanted to do was fish and shoot my BB gun and that I could never make a living doing anything like that. And there's times I wish that old coot was still alive so I could go back and show her I've done all right for myself,
I got
with these old dogs.
I got a funny story along that line, and it has nothing to do with hounds. So I grew up in Columbus, Indiana, and went to Taylorsville Elementary School. And Tony Stewart, NASCAR driver, was actually a grade behind me, but we all knew him. I played Little League Baseball with Tony back when we were first, second grade. And I still remember standing in the old Taylorsville school, and it was getting towards spring, and it was baseball season, and it was like I was in third grade. He would have been a year behind me. And, of course, all the boys are like, baseball sign-ups are coming. And we asked Tony, we're like, are you playing baseball this year? He's like, no, I'm racing go-karts. And we were like, oh, you'll never do anything with go-karts.
It's
crazy.
It's funny you mentioned that. One of the things that has helped propel me over the years is not shooting a gun, but shooting a camera and shooting video. And I'm very proud of that stuff. I think some of the images of dogs like Mojo and Mason and different things that have been done for ads and that we've done, I think it really makes the sport. It gives the sport a better image. It's a very good looking.
No doubt.
It's a very good looking clean. And so I always shot cameras. My grandfather had given me my first cameras, and then I always shot kind of cheap, inexpensive cameras through high school and through college. And then when I went to Wix, I ended up shooting for their catalog and learning a lot about photography. And then at Tri-tronics, was lucky enough to team up with a guy by the name of Lee Chose. Now, Lee Chose is a world famous photographer now, and he shoots for Under Armour, he shoots for Benelli, Matthews, but any cool looking ad. He's done work for our competitor Sport Dog, but any really cool looking ads in the outdoor industry that have just a neat look, he's the guy responsible. And I got to know him just as his career, he was working for an ad agency, and he was just going out with himself. And another fellow by the name of Tom Dockin from Dockin's Deadfall Trainers up in Minnesota, who's a really famous retriever trainer. He's done lots of videos. He's done got some books out and that kind of thing. Well, the three of us would go to South Dakota every year, and we would shoot photography, and we would hunt and different things. And when Lee started out on his own, he called me, and he had a big photo shoot in Virginia the next day. He called and said, "Man, I'm going to film Tony Stewart tomorrow."
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I said, "Well, who's running the lights for you?" He said, "No one. I got no help. I said, let me go and talk to my boss, Bob Peterson at the time, and who knew Lee, and I just went in. I said, "Hey, boss, can I have the next few days off? Lee needs some help." And he said, "Yeah, no problem." So I went back in, and on the phone, I told Lee, I said, "I'll just be there tomorrow, wherever you want." He said, "You kidding? You just tell me where, and I'll be there tomorrow." And I flew in there tomorrow. Now, I didn't know NASCAR. I'd heard of Tony Stewart a little bit.
Right.
And so I got to hang out with Tony Stewart all day. and Lee, cool. There was just like three of us there. And I talked to him about those stories. Like, dude, how did you ever get right. interested? Now, I hate cars, I have no interest in cars or racing. Right. I was like, now how in the world do you ever get interested in cars? And he would tell me, he said, "Well, just as a kid, just like you were saying, I started racing these go-karts but anyway,
he's a hunter too.
Yeah,
he is.
Tony.
Yeah.
So anyway,
he opens his farm and his properties up there for different youth hunts there around Columbus, Indiana.
That's terrific.
And supports things like that. But Mark, I know that you look at the old Cooner magazines and some of those things, the standard picture of a hound did the best they could do, but you revolutionized things like lighting in these ads, the presentation, and things like that in these Tri-tronics ads. And I really think that it set the bar for advertising and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And lots of that was Lee chose and another fellow by the name of Mitch Kezar, who's from Minnesota as well. And just being able to, I wouldn't say study under those guys, but watch those guys and ask those guys questions. Hey, how'd you do this and why'd you do this? And once that happened, my skills just went from basic to like, hey, that looks. I'm looking at those pictures like that looks pretty good.
Yeah,
I was very, very proud of some of those images, and I know Mac McAllister. I think when he bought Lipper, I think he paid $15,000 for him or something. He used to always say, "Yeah, I paid $1,000 for the dog and $14,000 for the picture." But who doesn't think of Lipper? With that picture of him with his head rolled up over his back and up on the side of that tree. And I just always thought, man, I hope some of these images I take have that influence on some kids or some people when they look at that and they go, wow, what a cool picture. Well, I mean, that is really neat.
Yeah. Well, I had the privilege of going out with you and with Jerry. We had Jerry on the program the other day, Jerry Mall at PKC, and we were photographing Jenny, and we tried to photograph that boneheaded plot I had, and he would never get up on the tree.
Was that Laredo?
Laredo. Chris remembers him. But the point being, the work that goes into trying to get a shot like that. And, I've done some photography, nothing like what you've done. But, it just drives me wild when a guy posts a stud dog ad and he's got this bush in front of the dog, and all, to see Mark around the tree. I've
always heard the stories,
see Mark around the tree. Hey, man, it's like he's pruning
Absolutely.
the
I've always
rose
heard
garden
those stories
at the White House. Believe me, I mean, it's right before he takes the shot. It's something to see, really.
When we shoot those things, a buddy of mine by the name of Howard Delcamp up in Goshen, Indiana, helps me a lot with the holding lights and doing different things for me now. And most people they don't realize the work that goes into it, and it's hours and hours of kind of preparation to get in the right spot. I always like to turn dogs loose after the fact because I always want to see how they hunt and what they sound like and what people always think, well, can we just turn the dog loose and you take some pictures? I said, yeah, we can do that. I said, well, but we might have to make 25 trees in order to find one where that dog's going to look good, where that animal's going to look good on that tree. So I've got some places that I know that have some really pretty trees. Yeah. And let's take advantage of that. Let's set those things up because you're looking for energy on that dog. You're looking for the tail's got to be right. The mouth has to be right. The feet have to be right. All of those things. And when you're, some dogs react to that flashing and all that movement around them like there's no problem. And I've also been in cases, situations where, I feel like I need to carry maybe a ball bat with me around when I'm walking around that tree a little bit, to make sure that nothing happens. And because you are using a live coon and dogs are fired up but a dog's treeing style and how they're going to act around even a caged coon, that determines so much. That determines whether that photo shoot's going to take, when you finally get the lights and everything set up, whether that's going to be a 20-minute job or a 3-hour job.
Right.
All those things. And people, I tell people, look, if it was easy, the magazines would be full of beautiful pictures.
Right. Correct.
But they're not, because it isn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what about this new coat you got coming out?
So I appreciate you mentioning that. Obviously, in addition to employees, in 2002, my wife Amber and I started Zepp's Coon Squallers and Predator Calls. And when I left Wix, I took a couple years off, and in that I had bought a camera, a super VHS camera back then, and I started hunting and filming my coyote hunts. And then so we turned that into Zepp's Coon Squallers and Predator Calls, and that's been great. I think it's kept, not that it makes us a bunch of money, but it certainly keeps it's fun for me. I enjoy it. My grandfather gave me a crow call when I was 10 or 11 years old, and I went
tear it apart?
No, I'll tell you what, I didn't know anything. I went out and I sat on his back porch outside, and I read the instructions. I didn't know anything, and I read the instructions on how to blow. And I'm sitting out there blowing this crow call on the back steps out there off of Whitney Road in Wellington, Ohio. And 3 minutes later, there's 20 crows flying over my head.
You're a natural. He's a natural. The crow whisperer.
But I'm telling you, that was it. That changed my life.
It was over.
That changed my whole. If they hadn't come, if that hadn't happened, none of this would ever happen. I firmly believe that, and so that was good. And then I've been, people always associate me with Wick Outdoor Works, and people always ask me about, gosh, I wish I could get John and Linda's clothing. And I know they were always concerned about maybe going overseas, somebody taking it and going overseas, but I just felt like it took me about 10 years to find the right people who could make this stuff. I don't have the time nor the inclination to hire 20, 30, 40 girls like that were out there in Montgomery City and setting that up. But it took me a while to find the right place and the right folks who could make really quality merchandise, because I don't think quality stuff costs money, and so in this game there isn't any game. There's scopes you can go to Walmart and buy that are $49, and one that looks just like it almost is $250, and but I just felt like nobody was doing a good enough job of that legacy, of passing that on as time has gone on. And so we started with the old Wick Briartown coat, and those will be available this year. And then, but we will have some bibs and chaps and other products coming. I don't know that that'll happen in 2019. Certainly it'll be here for 2020. And but we're excited about that, and it's really great stuff, really great quality stuff, and I'm proud to have my name on it, and I hope that is enough for a lot of folks, and that lets people know that it's darn nice stuff,
Yeah. Well, I can attest to the fact it's a nice piece. I'm looking forward to the trip to Arkansas and to some of the Midwest trips so I can actually wear something that's warm.
You've got Florida.
One. I do have one, absolutely, and it's great. And I know you've already got some ideas. You're going to improve a few things and all, but it's great. And it's, I've talked to some people here at Automox, and they're talking about John Wick and how's he doing and things. And
John,
all.
we love you and miss you, man. It's just not the same here without you, brother. And I've had 50 people ask about you and wondering how you're doing.
Absolutely, same here, Mark. And the people, one gentleman was sitting here in front of the booth yesterday saying, I still have my Wick clothing, but he said I don't wear it a lot because I want to save it. I mean, it's
right.
Like,
that's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
And I do. I have those Wick bibs and I have the Wick coats and those things.
Over the years, I have bought so much of that stuff secondhand, just for sizing, for patterns, and looking for the right ones, because there was a lot of changes and innovations. I mean, when you start with a product, certainly there's changes and innovations along the way. Most people don't see those things. I know what those things are, and as I
you know how the sausage is made, right?
Yeah, I didn't make any of it, but I know how it was made, and with a lot of love and care and attention to detail.
Sure.
And anyway, as that business grows and that enterprise grows, why I hope people like it as well as I do.
Sure. I'm sure they will.
It does well out west. It holds up to the Manzanita at least.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
So you wear it on the West Coast then?
I do.
Yeah.
I've got one of the jackets.
Nice.
We don't have many briars where we hunt, but that Manzanita brush can get pretty rough.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, what else?
Hey, it's been a great visit.
I think so.
Guys. Mark's always so busy around.
He is, and I
day.
appreciate you sitting down with us, Mark.
It is
my honor and my privilege to sit down with you guys. I think keep on keeping on and keep up the good work with what you're doing.
We appreciate your support that you've given the podcast as
Yes,
well,
sir.
Mark, through
Yes, sir.
Donating the Zepp spoilers, and
Yes, sir.
we've given some of those away to.
We have, and
done some
we've got
drawings
some
and-
plans for some more that we're going to be talking about pretty
Good.
soon with some
I'm-
new things that we're doing. And
I'm more than happy and honored to be a part of any of it. To support you.
well, and also with Jason, you can't say enough about W and Buddy and everybody out that way.
Don't
really.
forget Buddy's wife, Laura.
Okay.
Yeah, no kidding.
Don't forget that. She's a great gal and
I haven't had
really,
the privilege of meeting her.
She's a great gal, an important part of that business.
Yeah, well,
Very
absolutely.
important.
Sure. Well,
Jason?
yeah.
You got any final thoughts? You want to wrap anything up? You've been quiet this whole time. I was
I'm
expecting you to
soaking
jump
it all
in.
I'm. Anytime I can get around Mark, I love hearing his stories. And
Yeah.
to get to meet you guys finally, and Steve, and Chris, it's been a great weekend. I'm just trying to soak it all in because this is the one time a year I get out this way. For something like this. So I would encourage a lot of our West Coast guys. I've had more people message me. They see I'm at Autumn Oaks, but they don't know what it is. If you got the means, jump in the truck and come out, hop a plane, come see what it's about out here, because it's totally different. But if we're going to keep doing, we have a common goal, is to shed a positive light on our sport and show people what we're really all about as sportsmen and conservationists, and I just think that we got to bridge that gap somewhere. The coon hunters can't be against the cat hunters, and the cat and the bear. We're all houndsmen.
Right.
And we got to keep sticking together. So,
And that's what we've talked about several times on the podcast, Steve, is we don't care what you're hunting with your hounds. You're hunting gray fox with your hounds. If I've got hounds back here running gray fox, I got a problem.
Right.
Because I'm a coon hunter. Sure. But it's the common thread, and the way you coined it, Steve, that common thread of being a houndsman and the love of the hounds and everything that goes along with that.
Chris,
I would.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, in closing, we're a sponsor for Houndsman XP, but that whole Join the Fight page is all clubs and organizations that you can join, and we can help, support each other across the U.S. So I encourage all the listeners, go and check that out, dusupply.com, and just check out all these clubs and see how we can help each other out, cross-join, anything we can do to help each other.
Mark, we need the web address for Mark Zepp clothing.
Yeah, it's just markzepp.com.
No dot.
No,
just
markzepp.com. Yeah. I guess if I had one final thought today, it would be to put United Kennel Club's Autumn Oaks on your bucket list. For those of us who have been here, we realize how special of an event it is. And Alan and Todd and all the girls at UKC, what a great job that they do of getting sponsors, getting a terrific location and headquarters for this, and putting on just a special event. So if you've never been here, make it a point. If you're a hound person, you like this game even a little bit, make it a point to get here. You will really enjoy yourself. There's just wonderful people. There are tons of legends in the industry that are just walking around. I saw John Monroe yesterday and Lee Logan, and just very special people, dear friends, and I would encourage you to come and make new friends as well and meet these folks.
When I was here as part of my employment each year, one time along the way it just dawned on me, the event where history is made.
It is.
And that's, they've kind of hung on to that, but that is, it epitomizes what this is.
It really is. It's such a lot of events I can hardly wait to see, to get there, but I can hardly wait to get home. I always kind of wish this one was a day or two longer,
Absolutely.
I really do. So, but thanks for the opportunity, guys. It was great to see you.
It was our pleasure to have you on,
bet.
Mark.
Always.
And my final thought on it is echoing what you said, Mark. We talked about it in another podcast, but this is like the old fur trappers rendezvous, where people come and gear up and build relationships and share their stories, and you just every direction you look, you see houndsmen together that are small groups telling stories, legends walking through here of the sport, and it's just gotta be on people's list. You're going to tree a bear next week. You treed 40 bears last fall. Whatever's holding you up, take a few days and just come and see what we got going on.
And it all levels of experience. A lot of people come just for the camping. They love to camp out, and it's a beautiful place to camp. If you've got a 40-foot motorhome or whatever, fine. We got plenty of room here for that.
It's a true family event. There's lots of kids here. There's lots of mothers here. There's lots of wives. There's lots of girlfriends here. There's just a lot. I mean, it's just.
There's lots of women hunting in the hunt.
Yes.
One little aside. Yesterday we passed up here. There was a two-seater ATV, big one, and it was packed with kids. And I looked at it and I said, lights go on. I turn around the corner. There's Curtis Elburn. I said, Curtis, you're responsible for that whole wagon load of kids because they were all his grandkids.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that story was his two girls, Andy and Nikki, I remember when they were in strollers here at Autumn Oaks.
Right.
And they grew up, and now look, their kids are here and all.
It's wonderful.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And this is truly an iconic event. Steve, I'm going to hand it over to you to roll us out of here.
Hey, guys, you know what? We got a track right outside the door out here, man, and it is smoking hot. It's a gray fox. And, man, I think it's one of those West Coast fox, those kind of souped-up ones that go up trees. We're going to cut loose, okay? But here's what's going to happen.
Let's take those Airedales out there and cut them loose. Good-looking Airedales.
It's crazy how people bring their dogs of all breeds here. But anyway, once we cut them loose, guys, the rule is you follow your hounds, I'll follow mine.